EarthBound. For me, EarthBound isn't just a great game, it's my favorite game of all time. You might be saying to yourself, Bubbly, I've heard about EarthBound, but what is it exactly? Well, EarthBound was a unique RPG for the Super Nintendo, released in the US in 1995. Originally from Japan, it was released on the Super Famicom system in 1994 under the title Mother 2, as it was the sequel to the hit game Mother, released on the Famicom in 1989. Even though these games came out a long time ago, they're still very respected in Japan, and what was once a small group of fans in America has grown due to the protagonists from these games, Ness and Lucas, appearing as playable characters of the hit Nintendo series Super Smash Bros. That's all the history I'll give you for now, mainly because other people have explained it way better than me, and because I want to talk a little bit about my personal experience with the game. I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri, though I don't live there anymore. When I was a little girl, it was the late 80s, and shopping malls were huge, particularly in Kansas City, where the first outdoor mall, the Country Club Plaza, originated. I was in luck, because there was a great indoor mall about 5 minutes from our house called Antioch Mall. My parents would take us there just about every weekend. Antioch Mall was a place of firsts for me. I took piano lessons there for several years. My first arcade, Aladdin's Castle, was there. I had my first job there when I was 14 as a seasonal gift wrapper during Christmas. There was a restaurant called Fuki's Chinese Buffet, which strangely enough was the first place I ever tried sushi. There was even a Chuck E. Cheese's, which in my childhood was called Showbiz Pizza Place, and apparently it was the first location under that new brand. Antioch Mall also had a few little strip malls on the outskirts of it as well. One of them had a Blockbuster Video, which in my day was a huge success. Blockbuster Video is where I first found EarthBound. For those of you who don't know, Blockbuster Video was this massive chain of video rental stores that was popular in the late 80s and early 90s, and then completely went bankrupt by the end of the next decade. You can still find some Blockbuster Express kiosks here and there, but the stores of my yesteryear are all gone. It was kind of like a paid library for videos. You had to have a little membership card, and rentals would be anywhere from like $1 to like $7, depending on what you wanted to rent. They had everything separated by genre in the store, so you just wandered around until you found something you liked. But you didn't grab the original case. Those were empty. But behind the empty cases were the rental boxes, which did have the movie or game inside. If there was a rental box behind it, they had a copy for you to check out. You just take it up to the counter and pay. You didn't even have to come back into the store and wait in line to return it. You just dropped it off in the quick drop bin outside. My siblings and I sometimes argued over who got to get out of the car and drop them in the bin. Anyway, we went to Blockbuster pretty much every Friday night. My mom always let me, my brother, and my sister choose 1 or 2 things to rent, and whatever we picked had to last us through the weekend. When we were really little, we would just pick kids' movies to share, but as we got older, my brother got into console video games, and consequently so did I, and we eventually started renting games to share instead. Imagine, if you will, little Bubbly walking among the game shelves looking for a new game to play, and BAM! There's this huge SNES game box. It's at least twice as big as the other boxes. What is this monstrosity? It's the same size as the Mario Paint box, for crying out loud, and that was huge. Well, when I picked it up, I turned it over and began to inspect it. Wait a minute, this is set in modern times. Wait, did that say ATM card? Journey all over the world. Having played previous Super Nintendo RPG games like Final Fantasy II, at the time I had no idea it was actually Final Fantasy IV until it was re-released several years later, and Lufia, the Fortress of Doom, both games set in that classic fantasy Knights and Dragons landscape. It was shocking for me to see that an RPG was set in modern times with normal kids fighting aliens. It honestly intrigued me so much that I immediately knew it was all I wanted to play that Friday night. It turns out, on closer inspection, I discovered the box was so huge because it came with the official strategy guide. I had never seen a game do that before. Too bad it's here at Blockbuster, I thought to myself, looking down and sighing, because usually none of the extras in a box copy ever came with a rental game. However, there was a copy left to rent, so I took the rental box, put the original back on the shelf, and showed it to my parents. They approved, since I was a pretty trustworthy kid, and in my youth I hated violent games, especially horror games, but I'm completely the opposite now. Strange. Anyway, to my utter delight, when my parents went to check out with our family's rentals for the weekend, the employee said, "Oh yeah, hold on, you get the player's guide for this one." And he had to go back and find it. Imagine my utter delight! I must have looked like I had won the lottery. See, this was back in the day before we had internet, so there was no way to look up how to beat a game. You either bought the player's guide, if there was a player's guide for that game, or you looked it up in a magazine like Nintendo Power, or you were completely out of luck. Today, I was in luck. Although I didn't want to be spoiled, I couldn't help but look through it. I knew this game was going to be cool, but I had no idea it was about to change my life. It wasn't long after that EarthBound became my favorite rental. I had never beaten a game before, but I was doing so well, thanks Player's Guide, that I just knew that I had to beat it. I even wanted to skip out on my 8th grade dance to finish it, and I'm kind of wishing I had in hindsight because the dance was totally lame compared to the ending of this game. EarthBound was the first game that I ever beat, and for the longest time, it felt like I was the only kid who had ever even heard of it, until the internet. But I'll tell you that story after I've beaten the game. Anyway, I really wanted a copy of EarthBound, but I couldn't afford it. It was a hefty $99 plus tax when it came out in my area. I knew my parents wouldn't buy me a game that expensive, even if it came with a player's guide, and even if it was my favorite. So I resigned myself to renting it from Blockbuster whenever I wanted to play it. So let's skip forward a few years to 1998. EarthBound has been out for a while, and it didn't sell very well at all. My local Blockbuster Video isn't doing so hot either. In fact, they're closing their doors permanently. This was such a sad time for me because I loved going there every week, and it had a lot of nostalgia for me. It was also sad because it meant I'd never see EarthBound again. Or so I thought. A week later, I was at my used and new game store, GameCo at Antioch Mall, and lo and behold, I found out they had bought out Blockbuster Video's entire stock of games, and that included EarthBound with the player's guide. I remember spotting the familiar guide on a magazine rack and being overjoyed. I didn't care how much it was, I was getting it. When I went to the glass counter to look at all of the SNES games, there it was. The question was, how much would it cost? You won't believe the answer, you guys. Before the internet, which is how most gamers and stores check their prices nowadays, they used to print and give out handy-dandy price guides. I looked all over the net for GameCo price lists, but all I could find was one from Funkoland, another 90s video game store chain that was bought up by GameStop long ago. Anyway, these stores would release a new issue every month with updated prices on every game they had. Every game. We had that few games back then, especially compared to now. Here's one from November 1999 that I was able to track down on the internet. This is the first one I could find that even mentioned EarthBound directly. Does anyone want to guess how much EarthBound was in November 1999? Drumroll, please! A mere $29.99! What a deal! You know, especially considering because as of this video posting, EarthBound costs about $200 for just the card alone. If you had the player's guide and the original box, it's worth at least $500, if not more, depending on everything's condition, of course. I was curious, so I looked around and found tons of other evidence to support this pricing as well. Check out these ads! Holy moly! So I bet you're wondering, how much did I pay for it? $20. In fact, the guy working at my GameCo store was so nice, he even threw in the strategy guide for free. For free! He didn't think anyone would want it, and I was clearly so excited about it. Even if I would have paid for it, it was only marked as $3. You see, at the time, EarthBound was an unknown, underappreciated game, so I probably had the luckiest streak of my life. My only regret was Blockbuster had thrown away the box, probably because it was covered in price tags and little marker marks, and it was way too big to sit on a shelf. I don't blame them. Back in the day, no one saved boxes. In fact, I tried saving a few of mine, but my mom threw them out. No worries, Mom, I still love you. Now, I bet one of you is like, Bubbly, how did you know that game was the one that you played at Blockbuster? Well, my friend, because when I got home and popped it into our Super Nintendo, my save file showed up. Everything on there. It wasn't just a name coincidence, because all of the names were correct and all the other things that you fill in were my responses. I swear to you, I almost cried. It meant so much to me to have this game, and I still have it to this very day. And yes, it still works. Here, I'll show you. Be right back. Hello, everybody. So are you ready? Here it is. This is the very first EarthBound cart that I ever played, and it's the one that I got for 20 bucks at GameCo. Like, it was a steal. Not only because I got this, but I also got this. Yes. This is the player's guide. And if you want to know, yes, I do still have the scratch and sniff stickers that came with it as well. And they still smell terrible. Like, for example, Shroom here. Ugh. Actually, the worst one is Mondo Mole because he totally smells like body odor. The only good one, in my opinion, is Bubble Monkey because he smells like bananas. Oh, a wonderful scent. I'm so glad it still smells. But yeah, as you can see, this isn't a mint condition guide because I use this thing so much. And, you know, it's probably passed through like a bazillion other hands before I got my hands finally on it, so. But it isn't missing any pages, and it's all together. And I've taken very good care of it. Most days now, it just sits on my mother's shelf with all my other things. But this is definitely, like, these guys are like my two treasures in life. And although I don't have the box, like, I've got the most important part of my collection. So, that is my EarthBound stuff. I can't really say too much more about EarthBound without actually playing it and showing it to you, so next time on RETROASIS, I'm going to start playing my favorite game of all time, EarthBound. I hope you'll join me as I take a fresh look at a game that for me is steeped in years of nostalgia. Look forward to it! This is Bubbly Oasis, signing off! Now, say Fuzzy Pickles! Hey guys, Bubbly here. If you're an EarthBound fan and you want to come party with other fans, I highly encourage you to pledge to Fangamer's Kickstarter. They did the first ever EarthBound themed convention last year, Camp Fangamer, and Camp Video Gamely this year will be even better. You can click here, or there's also a link in the description. Thanks for watching, everybody!